A 9-year-old boy asked a Backstage producer one simple question. And when Simon Cowell heard what that question was, he couldn't hold back his tears. The America's Got Talent stage. Another Tuesday night audition. Another packed theater in Los Angeles. The familiar rhythm of dreams and disappointments, talent and hope, played out under the bright lights and cameras. A man walked onto the stage. His name was David Martinez. 38 years old. Wearing jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed performer. He looked nervous, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the microphone. Behind him, barely visible in the stage shadows, sat a small figure on a stool. A boy. Maybe 9 years old. Dark hair. Oversized AGT cruise shirt someone had given him backstage. He sat perfectly still, watching his father walk to center stage. Terry Crews greeted David with his usual energy. "Welcome to America's Got Talent. Tell us about yourself, man. Who are you and what brings you here today?" David cleared his throat. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. "My name is David Martinez. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a middle school music teacher. And I'm here because—" He paused, looking back at the boy on the stool. "I'm here because my son asked me to be." The camera followed his gaze to the child. The boy gave a small wave. "That's your son back there?" Howie Mandel called out from the judges' table. "Yes, sir. That's Miguel. He's 9. Simon Cowell leaned forward slightly, his arms crossed in his characteristic pose. "And what will you be singing for us today, David?" "I'll be singing Fix You by Coldplay." A murmur ran through the audience. It was a difficult song. Emotional. The kind of song that could break a voice if you weren't careful. "All right," Simon said, settling back. "Let's hear it." The music started. Soft piano notes, filling the theater. David closed his eyes, took a breath, and began to sing. His voice was good. Not perfect. Not technically flawless. But there was something in it, something raw and honest that made people listen. He sang about trying and fixing what was broken, about lights guiding you home, and the audience fell silent in that way they do when something real is happening. Simon watched him passively. Heidi smiled encouragingly. Sophia had her hand on her heart. Howie was nodding along. And backstage, in the production area just offstage, 9-year-old Miguel Martinez sat with a production assistant named Rachel, who had been assigned to keep him company while his father performed. Miguel was quiet. He'd been quiet all afternoon, through the security check, through the green room wait, through the endless explanations of how the show worked. Rachel had tried to engage him in conversation, but he'd only given short, polite answers. Now, as his father's voice filled the theater, Miguel finally spoke. "Miss Rachel?" His voice was small, barely audible over the performance. "Yes, sweetie? Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Miguel hesitated then. "If my dad doesn't win, will the judges still be nice to him?" Rachel's heart clenched. "Oh honey, of course they will. Why would you worry about that?" "Because—" Miguel's eyes filled with tears. "Because my dad hasn't sung in 3 years. Not since my mom died. And this is the first time I've seen him smile in so long. And if they're mean to him, I think it might break him again." Rachel froze. She looked at this 9-year-old boy who was trying so hard to be brave, who had just revealed something that changed everything about what they were watching on that stage. "Miguel," Rachel said gently, "does your dad know you're worried about this?" The boy shook his head. "I didn't want him to be nervous. He almost didn't come. He said he wasn't ready. But I told him Mom would want him to try. I told him she'd want him to sing again." Rachel made a decision. She pressed her finger to her earpiece, the one connected to the control room and the judge's audio feeds. "Hold on, Miguel. Stay right here." She stood and hurried to the stage manager, whispering urgently. The stage manager's eyes widened, and he immediately relayed the information up the chain, to the director, to the producers, and directly into the earpieces worn by all four judges. On stage, David was building to the song's emotional climax. His voice cracked slightly on the high note, not from lack of skill, but from the weight of emotion he was carrying. And in his earpiece, Simon Cowell heard a producer's voice. "Simon, the contestant's son just told our PA something backstage. The boy's mother died 3 years ago. The father hasn't sung since. The kid is terrified we're going to hurt his dad and break him again." He said this is the first time he's seen his father smile in 3 years. Simon's entire body went rigid. Simon stopped the show. No one knew what was happening. David finished the final note. The audience erupted in applause. He opened his eyes, relief and nervousness washing over his face. He looked back at Miguel, who was giving him a thumbs up from the stool. The applause died down. The judges usually started their comments immediately. But Simon hadn't moved. He was staring at David with an expression no one in the theater could quite read. Howie started to speak. "David, that was really—" "Wait," Simon interrupted, his voice sharp. "Hold on." The theater went silent. David's smile faltered. The audience exchanged confused glances. Simon stood up. He never stood up during auditions. Never. "David," Simon said, his voice different, softer, but carrying across the theater. "Before we give you our comments, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me." David's face went pale. "Okay. Your son, Miguel. He's backstage right now with one of our production assistants. Is that right?" "Yes." Yes. "Is he okay? Did something happen?" "He's fine," Simon said quickly. "But he said something to our staff. And I think you need to hear it." The control room scrambled. Cameras swung to capture every angle. The other judges looked at Simon in confusion. Terry Crews stepped closer, sensing something significant was happening. Simon looked directly at the boy on the stool. "Miguel, can you come out here, please? Come stand with your dad." Miguel's eyes went wide. He looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly, the boy walked onto the stage, his small frame seeming even smaller under the massive lights. He reached his father, who immediately put his arm around him. "It's okay, buddy," David whispered. "Whatever it is, it's okay." Simon walked out from behind the judge's desk. The audience gasped. In 15 seasons of America's Got Talent, Simon Cowell had left the judge's table maybe a dozen times, and never like this. Never during an audition. He walked to the edge of the stage, looking up at David and Miguel. His eyes were already glistening. "Miguel," Simon said gently, "you told our production assistant something a few minutes ago. You asked her a question? Do you remember what you asked?" Miguel nodded, tears already streaming down his face. I asked if the judges would be nice to my dad even if he didn't win." "And why did you ask that?" The boy's voice broke. "Because my dad hasn't sung since my mom died. And today is the first time I've seen him happy in 3 years. And I was scared that if you were mean to him, it would break him again." The audience's collective gasp was audible. Tissues appeared in hands throughout the theater. Heidi had tears streaming down her face. Sophia's hand was over her mouth. Howie was wiping his eyes. David pulled his son close, his own tears falling. "Miguel, buddy, you didn't have to worry about that. I'm okay. I'm okay now." Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this performance is still ahead. Simon looked at David. "You lost your wife 3 years ago?" David nodded, unable to speak. "And you stopped singing?" "I couldn't," David said, his voice raw. "Music was our thing. We met in a choir. We sang together all the time. After she died, every song it all reminded me of her. I couldn't do it anymore." "What changed?" David looked down at his son. "He did. About 6 months ago, Miguel came to me with an application for this show. He'd filled most of it out himself. He asked me to audition, he said. David's voice cracked. He said Mom would want me to sing again. That she wouldn't want the music to die with her. Simon stood there, and for the first time in his decades-long career as a judge, Simon Cowell openly wept on camera. Not a single tear, carefully hidden. Full, body-shaking emotion. Miguel, Simon said, his voice thick. Your father is one of the bravest people I've ever seen on this stage. Not because he has the best voice, though he's very good. But because he came here and did something terrifying because you asked him to. Because he chose to honor your mother by not letting fear win. He turned to the other judges. I don't need to hear from anyone else. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Simon walked back to the judges' table. The audience was on its feet now, sensing what was coming. Heidi, Howie, and Sophia were all nodding, all in tears. Simon's hand hovered over the golden buzzer. David, Miguel, Simon said. Music doesn't die when we lose someone we love. It changes. It hurts. But it doesn't die. Your wife gave you music, and you're giving it to your son. And today, you gave it back to yourself. Backstage, producers were begging him to continue, but he didn't. Simon slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded across the stage. The audience screamed. The music blared. David fell to his knees, pulling Miguel into his arms, both of them sobbing. The boy wrapped his small arms around his father's neck and held on tight. Terry Crews rushed onto the stage, embracing them both. The other judges had left their table and were standing, applauding, crying openly. Simon didn't move from his position at the judge's desk. He just watched father and son hold each other under the falling gold confetti, and he didn't try to hide his tears. The cameras caught everything. The way David kept saying, "Thank you," over and over. The way Miguel looked up at his father with pure joy. The way the entire theater became a collective witness to healing. When the confetti finally settled and the music faded, David and Miguel stood together, hands clasped. Simon walked back onto the stage one more time. He crouched down to Miguel's eye level. Can I tell you something, mate? Miguel nodded, wiping his eyes. Your dad didn't need to win anything today. He already won the day you were brave enough to ask him to try. You gave your father his music back. That's bigger than any competition. Simon reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. His personal business card, something he rarely gave out. He handed it to David. That has my private email on it. I want you to send me a video of you and Miguel singing together. Something your wife would have loved. Can you do that? David stared at the card, speechless. Yes. Yes, of course. Thank you. Don't thank me, Simon said. Thank your son. He's the real star here. But what happened next, no one in the theater, or watching at home, could ever forget. After the show finished taping, Simon did something he'd never done before. He asked production to give him David and Miguel's contact information. He made calls to several music industry contacts. He arranged for David to record a proper demo in a professional studio, all expenses paid. But more importantly, he had his team arrange something else. 2 weeks later, David and Miguel received plane tickets to Los Angeles and an invitation to a private recording session. When they arrived at the studio, they found a surprise. Simon had gathered a string quartet and a pianist. Your wife loved music, Simon told David. So let's make something beautiful for her. You and Miguel. Together. A song she would have loved. They recorded. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. The song David and his wife had sung at their wedding. Miguel sang harmony, his small voice blending with his father's. The string quartet wrapped around them with warmth and grace. Simon sat in the control room, listening, and cried again. The recording was pressed onto a vinyl record with a custom label. For Maria Love, David and Miguel. Simon had it framed with the golden buzzer confetti from their audition and sent it to them. David didn't make it past the semifinals. But that didn't matter. Because 3 years after his audition, David Martinez is still singing. He performs at his son's school events. He sings at community gatherings. And every Sunday morning, he and Miguel sing together in their living room, just like David used to do with Maria. Share and subscribe, so this story will never be forgotten. The business card Simon gave David sits framed on their mantel. Below it, a note Miguel wrote. "Thank you for being nice to my dad." Simon keeps a copy of that note in his office. On difficult days, when he feels cynical or tired, he reads it and remembers why he does this job. Not to find the next big star, but to witness the moment when music stops being about loss and becomes about healing again. Miguel's question changed everything. Will the judges still be nice to my dad? The answer, it turned out, was more than nice. It was everything.